Yo, Dragon Ballers, quick break in the video to give a huge shout out to PPG, who is going above and beyond to make our organized play season the best that it can possibly be. I'm here on the PPG event management website. I'm going to link this down in the description, so all you have to do to sign up for any of these events is go down to that link. Next up is the Origins event, which is a huge one, guys. They have events going from Wednesday to Saturday. Practically every single day of the con, you can play a Dragon Ball Super event among other card games. It's going to be an absolutely incredible time. Next up, after that, we have an event in Denver, which is for the Pro Play Tour organized season. Not only are you playing for an invite to the Pro Play Invitational, but you're also playing for $2,000 guaranteed. And if you want to, guys, there is also a Team War event in that same weekend, and Team War is one of the best formats to play. If you haven't played a tournament with your friends, you absolutely have to do it. And then finally, an event that I know for sure that I'll be attending is the Too Many Games convention in Philadelphia. This is actually a regional for the regular Dragon Ball Super organized play season. So again, guys, super huge shout out to PPG. Secondly, this website is so awesomely laid out. All you have to do is go to this website. All these different tabs here will take you to the events you want to sign up for. I hope to see you guys there. Let's get back into the video. Yo, what's going on, Dragon Ballers? Welcome back to another Top Cut breakdown video. We have the first event of the Ultimate Squad meta to cover today, and I'm super excited. I always love when we get to talk about information from a new meta, so we'll get into that in today's video. If you are new here, make sure to subscribe, hit that bell so you never miss a Dragon Ball Super video, and if you guys want to help support the channel, there are many ways down in the description to do so, as always. But today, guys, if you want to get your game up, you want to get ready for events just like this, check out the Patreon down in the description. Not only can you read the articles that I post there that are more competitively geared, but you can also inquire about coaching if you're interested in that. Anyways, let's get started. We have the Texas Akon Regional, 128 players, 7 rounds, and here is your top 16. We have Finn taking the first place. Now, that's really crazy to look at, but we'll talk about that more in a bit. So we have Cooler coming in second place. We have 4 Reboot Cell in this top 16, the most topping deck of this tournament. 2 U7 Goku, 2 Janemba Mill, 1 SSG Goku Crimson Warrior, an Android 21, an Android 16, a Toa, a Gogeta Xeno, and a Sin Shenron. So that's your top 16 there. A lot of this is real crazy to look at, and this is some really great data, especially for an IRL event, because it was 128 players, it was 7 rounds, it was best of 1 pre-side, so that's a little bit skewed. It's not like the perfect tournament or anything, but I mean, this many players, this many rounds, that's some pretty good data. And the fact that side deck was still available, so you can't really say, you know, a lot of these strategies went unchecked. It's cool data to pick from. But anyways, let's get into this, talking about Finn, the deck that won the event. Now, if you ask me, I never would have guessed this in a million years that Finn would go on to win an event, but the more you think about it, it makes sense in an interesting way. Finn is particularly good at interrupting unison-based strategies, and Ultimate Squad gives us many of those. The main one you probably can think about is GT Goku. Like, that deck requires its unison to play. It's a vital part of the unison. So if you're able to just play Finn Unison Absorber, you're going to send all the cards under the unison to the drop area. That's just one example of an interaction where Finn can really just destroy a unison-based strategy. But think about the other really powerful unisons in the game. We have like Yellow Machikabura Unison, for example. Sin Shenron is still a popular deck, so playing that against Machikabura means your opponent loses a lot of value. There's also the Blue Boo Unison, although they could counterplay to protect it. That's definitely an option, but you see my point. Like, all these decks that you know, kind of hinge on these powerful unisons, Finn has a pretty interesting time against. The red matchup, I think, is a little bit interesting because, one, red's very aggressive, and this is like a black mid-range deck that has its own Nimbus, granted, which is very powerful, but Vegeta Resolve Renewed is very popular in red decks right now, but it does require you to be on 3 energy. So if you can drop Finn Unison Absorber before they can use Vegeta Resolve Renewed, or you catch them tap out, that seems really strong. And on top of that, this Finn deck was playing a Mirror Creator Absorb Chain, which is a really great game-ending you know, strategy to use. I think Toa can use it very well too. So yeah, I like that a lot. This deck is very interesting, took us by surprise. I am very interested to see if Finn can continue to make these types of waves, whether it consistently tops or just, you know, proves itself to be a better deck in the meta because there are so many unison dependent strategies. But I mean, I think we might be able to see this wave of, you know, let's just say Finn remains dominant because unison reliant strategies are so good. We can start to see some non-unison reliant strategies come back into the fold. That would be pretty interesting. So that could actually be a way the meta evolves. But that's just speculation. We'll have to really see if Finn does more in the current meta with these results. Next up, we have Cooler taking second place. Now, I've talked about Cooler a lot here on the channel. I think it is a very, very good deck. I know a lot of us are very happy that Green finally got a meta-worthy contender out of a main set. It's been like 5 sets since that happened, so that's awesome. I am actually profiling this deck on the channel tomorrow, so make sure to come back for that if you want to see it. We're going to go fully in depth on the list that Andres played. But yeah, Cooler taking second place, really awesome. I did ask him if Deborah Ritual at hand was particularly annoying because, I don't know, like if I was going to this tournament, I would have definitely went prepped with Deborah at my sideboard because I would have expected Cooler to be pretty popular, not to mention Cell, Reboot, which we'll talk about in a second. But yeah, I guess Deborah, either his opponents didn't see it. He said his opponent sided in a fair amount, and it did lose him 1 round. But yeah, I mean, the thing with Cooler is you're picking like 1 card from their hand at a time, you know, sometimes 2 cards from their hand, maybe sometimes 3, depending how crazy your turn might be. So with such a small volume of hand control, it seems like Deborah could be more annoying to you than, let's just say, Cell Reboot. But again, like if your opponent doesn't leave the energy up for it, if your opponent doesn't draw into their side deck card, if they don't side it at all, that's going to be a great time for Cooler. Unfortunately, the thing with Cooler is the better it is and the better Green is in general, the more likely people are probably going to be siding Deborah Ritual at hand. So that's something to keep in mind as well. But again, very interesting ways the meta can evolve depending on the decks that are doing well at a given moment. And then we have Cell Reboot, 4 copies of this deck taking up the top 16. That's wild. This deck gives me Gogeta 7 vibes. If you guys are new to the game, don't know what Gogeta 7 is, you're really lucky, to be honest, because Gogeta 7 is one of the most unfun strategies to play against in the Dragon Ball Super card game. That was basically a deflect boss monster that costs 5 in blue decks that said your opponent shuffles their hand back into their deck and they draw 3 cards. If you know how the Reboot Cell deck plays on its turn 5, it's somewhat similar, although obviously not as powerful technically, because with Perfect Force Cell, you can keep the best 3 cards in your hand. It does not have deflect, so if you run counterplays that can stop it, that's great, but most decks don't really have access to counterplays that can actually stop Perfect Force Cell's effect from resolving. So you've got a few options. Aggressive decks can get underneath Cell, and if you can put seriously ample pressure before they get to turn 5 or just kill them outright, that's obviously great. But the turn 5 is very scary when they have Perfect Force Cell followed up by the SS3 Vegito Unison, which the -7 just takes the last 3 cards out of your hand and then crits 1 of your lives. Either that or the Cell Xeno SCR on top of Perfect Force Cell. Your hand's going to go to 0. You're probably going to die right on the spot. And from my experience, Deborah is not actually as impactful against this deck because, you know, most decks in the game now, you have huge hands by turn 5. Like, we're talking 10 plus cards in hand, maybe even 12 on average. So with that in mind, Perfect Force Cell making you take like a -7 or greater, Deborah is not going to counteract that in a meaningful way, right? That's just not realistic. And the thing about the Cell deck too is that it's not usually really picking at your hand any turn before that, so you're not going to get like incremental advantages off of Deborah's. They're just going to do the one big play to take your hand away. I think Cell is like a very complete deck in the sense that it has a great mid-game battle card with Cell and Ending Torrents. That is a really strong card in the mid-game that either puts on great pressure or defends you really well. And then of course you have the game-ending play on turn 5, but the deck does have some consistency issues, sort of, more so in the fact that you have to run a few 10k combos. You're playing green, so you don't have like the most access to your energy. You're tapping out a lot in the deck. But Dorm Potential is going to really help you get to turn 5, especially because of the hits we saw to aggro on the Ultimate Squad ban list. This deck seems like it might be a menace. Now, the one thing that makes me, I guess, hopeful about this deck is that it's got a real rough red matchup, which is nice. Cell and Ending Torrent has incredible protection, but it doesn't do anything against red, minusing it off the board. But that leads me to say I'm very surprised at the lack of red in this top 16. I really thought red would be the best color going into this. And of course, there's only one tournament. There's plenty of time for that to kind of develop. And again, in the case of GT, Finn might have put a wrench in those players' plans. But that leads us, I guess, to talk about U7 Goku. So U7 Goku did take up 2 slots in this top 16. Honestly, if you asked me to say my opinion on what the most topping deck would have been, I probably would have went with U7 Goku just because it was so popular last format. There was no real reason for players to switch off the deck unless they were making a particular meta call for some reason. But I do wonder if these lists were playing the 3-drop or the 2-drop Unison variants. I think the 2-drop Unison variant obviously takes a hit with Piccolo Jr. going to 1, but Mass Sand Avenger from Another Dimension is actually really nice in the deck because it gains power based on the sands that you have in your battle area. You're able to actually dump sands into your drop area, which can get you more U7s in your drop, because sometimes by turn 4 you might not have exactly enough in your drop area, even for your secret rare especially. So this card setting up your drop even better, and drawing cards is really nice for the 2-drop variant. But again, I do wonder which variant it was. And another cool tech in this deck is actually a 3-drop Baby Unison. That could take the place of Jiren. It wouldn't really be as aggressive, but it would continue drawing you more cards and serve as spot removal, which is definitely not a bad thing. But yeah, I do definitely wonder what Unisons these U7 decks are playing. If you know information about that, drop it in the comments. I'm sure people would love to see it. And then we have two representatives for blue. So the first one and more topping one was Relentless Speed Janemba Mill. I told you guys to be ready for Mill. It was here in full force at Texas. A little bit surprised that other variants of Mill didn't quite top, like a Black Sin or a Cooler Mill, but I mean, Janemba just representing Mill there. It's something that's been in the game for a long time now, and whenever a meta slows down, this type of deck is going to be able to thrive, because if games are elongated, that's only good for Mill, right? If it's not being pressured heavily or aggroed very much, that's only going to be a good thing for Mill. But then we have SSG Goku. So I unfortunately don't know what type of build this was. I would be very curious to know if it was an aggressive build like Marcus's from maybe about a month ago at this point. If you guys want to see the build that I'm talking about, just search up SSG Goku here on the channel. You'll see it from Marcus's, I think it was 2nd place or 3rd place list. But yeah, this deck can house blue aggro very, very well. This whole meta here that we're looking at is not super aggressive. This would be a pretty interesting representative for aggro though, considering that it's blue and blue is not typically aggressive. But SSG Goku, the only thing it lost for the aggressive variant was fighting against Fates, which is a really big hit, but there are some other overwhelms you could play. One coming to mind would be like Scientist Fu, because you're a blue deck, you have the ability to untap, and that's not gonna, you're not gonna feel too taxed by having to pay 1 for Scientist Fu. That's just me going off on a bit of a tangent. But yeah, this could have been mid-range blue, this could have been control blue for all I know. So if you know what kind of build this was, definitely drop it in the comments as well. And then we have two different blue-green variants. We have blue-green Android 21 and blue-green Android 16. 16, I expected to maintain popularity from Jared Lopez kind of putting it on the map, as well as some other players doing well with it. And Android 21, man, Rohit is an absolute beast. If he takes this deck to an event, he's probably going to top. I think his track record right now is like 3 for 3 or 4 for 4 ever since Nats last year. This guy has been on a tear with this deck, which is super cool. I'll reach out to him, see if he's made any big changes to his list, maybe even get a profile if he wants to do it. But yeah, this guy does insane stuff with his deck. It's very, very good. I mean, the cards in the deck are really strong. And these are going to be similar-ish to Gamma. We didn't see any Gamma top this event, which I'm sure surprised some people. But they're all playing similar cards, like blue-green androids, right? So I wonder if any of these decks use some of the new Gamma cards, like the 9-drop Cell from the Energy or anything like that. And then for black, we have Toa. So yeah, I mean, I think Toa's a good deck. I guess it was able to prove itself here this weekend, which is very, very cool. I was a little bit surprised at the list though, just not seeing a Mirror Creator Absorb Engine. I think that's a really powerful game ender for the deck. When at least in my experience, it was kind of lacking game ending power. Toa Furious Onslaught is a great card, but it's not the same as the Mirror Chain, right? But I mean, I think Eric is gonna do a profile on his deck if he gets a chance, and give us some more explanation about it. And Gogeta Xeno, this is like probably the most mind-blowing thing of the entire tournament. Like, this deck got absolutely nuked on the ban list. I would be very, very curious to see what this deck entailed. Yeah, I honestly have no words for how Gogeta could have topped this event with the hits it saw on the ban list. It's absolutely crazy. Obviously, it probably had to include some other engines. Maybe it focused on 1-drop spam, because the leader can still buff the 1-drops. You can play Pycon Unison, but you can't play Marvelous Might to crack into the 1-drop. So again, very curious to know what this deck would have entailed. And then finally, Sin Shenron, we talked about it 1.5 million times. You have to know the Sin matchup by now. You've got to do significant damage to them before they get to turn 4 and play Machikabura Unison. Otherwise, you're going to be in for a rough time. And that's just basically a Sin matchup in a nutshell. With the meta slowing down, that's going to be harder for players to do, but there are some rogue aggro decks that can really get underneath Sin's skin and make sure you have the appropriate removal tech for their 9-drops. But anyways, guys, that's going to cover today's video. As we expected, not a super aggressive meta, because the best 2 aggressive decks were hit significantly on the ban list. But I think we'll see some contenders rise up out of nowhere. Maybe some Jiren, maybe some AOD, maybe some Blue Crimson Goku, who knows. But anyways, guys, let me know in the comments below what you think. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next video.